Welcome to the Blueprint Communities of Delaware kickoff of 2016. My name is John Bendel. I'm the Director of Community Investment at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, and it is my honor to serve as MC for today's event. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh and our co-sponsor, the University of Delaware, are very excited to welcome into the Blueprint family 4 new Blueprint community teams. You joined 11 other teams from the state of Delaware who have gone through this initiative, and 44 other communities scattered throughout Pennsylvania and West Virginia who have done the same thing. So welcome to all of you, and today is your day. So before I get too far into my remarks, I want to recognize some special guests that we have with us today. We have Governor Jack Markell. Thank you for being here. Congressman John Carney. Thank you for being here. And of course, these gentlemen have very, very busy schedules, but they know how important communities are and the strength and financial stability of these communities in the state are. And we appreciate them being here to show their support, not only today, but as you move forward with your plans and projects. Also, we have representative from Senator Chris Coons' office. Andrew Dinsmore is here. Where's Andrew? All right, he's in the back. We have David Starr here, Representative Senator Carper's office. Also, I want to recognize Dr. Dan Rich from the University of Delaware. He's the Director of Community Engagement Initiative. Where are you? There you are. And also we have Rick Deadweiler, who's also University of Delaware Director of Government Relations. Where are you? So the next 2 people that I'm going to introduce have very close ties to the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, but they're local and one of your own here in Delaware, or 2 of your own here in Delaware. Anas Benedi, who is your director of the State Housing Authority, and Russ Huxtable. I didn't see Russ come in, but hopefully he's here. He's with Milford Housing Development Corporation. Their connection to the Federal Home Loan Bank is that they sit and serve on what we call the Affordable Housing Advisory Council. That council meets 4 times a year and provides advice to the management of the Federal Home Loan Bank and our board of directors. And the advice that they provide tells us how to set our policy, our programs, and where to offer initiatives when we go forward. You couldn't have 2 better representatives on the advisory council, I can tell you, very much. And there isn't a meeting that goes by that either Anas or Russ doesn't stop and say, hey, what about Delaware? So Anas, and Russ, today is all about Delaware. Also, I have some colleagues from the Federal Home Loan Bank. Shortly, you're going to hear from our CEO, but I also want to introduce our Chief Operating Officer, Chris Williams, who's up here in the front row. And then also my teammates, Dave Bucas, who many of you know, Chris Hyatt, Yvonne Darris here, and Megan Kreider, who all work at the Federal Home Loan Bank, along with John Foff, who's also in the audience as well. So, meaning no disrespect to those that I just introduced, the very important people in the room today are the representatives and the leaders of the community teams who are joining Blueprint. Today is completely all about you, and we celebrate your success so far, and we look forward to working with you as you go forward. Blueprint Communities is not a new initiative. This is actually the 7th kickoff that we have done. And if you don't tell our friends in West Virginia and Delaware, where the Federal Home Loan Bank also works, we've done it twice in each of those states. This is the 3rd time that we've offered it in Delaware, and we're very, very glad to do so. As I mentioned, there are 11 communities from Delaware that have already been through the initiative and 44 others in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. I've been to every kickoff event like this that we have done so far, and I know that there's excitement, there's anxiety, And you probably only know a little bit about what Blueprint Communities is, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background so you have some information. But I want to take your excitement from here to here, and hopefully I can take your anxiety from here to down here. So let's talk a little bit about what Blueprint is and how it started. Federal Home Loan Bank started the initiative back in 2005, so 11 years ago. And the whole notion is based on 3 core tenets. Number 1, communities have strong local leadership, but that leadership can be honed and those skills can be grown, along with collaboration with others and building the capacity of communities to do projects. So the first tenet is to build leadership capacity and your community capacity. Number 2 is to develop a vision that's shared by the members of the team and the communities that you represent, and create a plan that has projects and initiatives in it that's a living and breathing document that allows you to achieve the hopes and dreams that is in your vision. So if you do the first 2 tenets right, you build your leadership skills, you build your capacity, then you create a vision and a plan. The next and third tenet is to build relationships with funding sources, both public and private. So if you do those things right, the funding should follow. And Blueprint will allow you to build relationships with funders that can support you after your plans are complete. So as I mentioned, Blueprint's been around for 11 years now, so we've had experience. The impact has been felt. So we measure financial impact as well as other impacts. So the communities that have gone through Blueprint in the past, we've had 55 go through it so far. And just on what we can measure, and they report to us, those 55 communities have received over $286 million of investments in those communities over that 10 years. That's just what we know about. And I'm happy to report, too, the initiative has matured. In 2014, we received an Innovation Award on Leadership from the Council of State Association of Community Development Organizations, so it was a national award that this program received. All this to say, you are already leaders in your communities. You've shown great courage by stepping up and joining an initiative that you know a little bit about. If you work together, if you roll up your sleeves, you develop your skills, you engage your community, you create a vision and a plan, I can guarantee you the resources to implement your plan and change your community will follow. So good luck to all of you. You're going to hear from me in a little bit. But you also may be asking yourself, why does a bank from Pittsburgh care so much about what happens to communities in Delaware? So with that answer is our first speaker. He is the CEO and President of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, Winthrop Watson.
Thank you, John. And good morning, everyone. Governor Markell, Congressman Carney, Dr. Grasso, friends, partners, and guests, thank you for being here. I also particularly like to thank Chris Williams, my partner, and his shared interest in these programs at the bank for joining today. Before I get going, I'd like to make a quick note about Congressman Carney related to our business around housing. Congressman Carney is working with a couple of other legislators with a real plan to replace Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and congratulations on your ideas, and I hope they have some traction. They're really good ideas. This is a great day for community development in Delaware. I'm delighted to be here with our partners from the University of Delaware to welcome these 4 teams to our newest Blueprint communities. We have every confidence that these 4 teams, like those before them, will learn, grow, and succeed as a result of their Blueprint experience. John posed a question you may be wondering about. Why is the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh so committed to community development in Delaware? Let me give you a brief background. Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh is a co-op, which means we are owned by our members, approximately 300 financial institutions in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. We're one of 11 independently managed banks in the Federal Home Loan Bank system. Our mission is to assure the flow of credit to our members to support housing finance and community lending, and to provide services that enhance their businesses and vitalize their communities. Our primary business is to lend to our members so that they in turn have money to lend to their communities. We have 18 members in Delaware, both large and small. At year end, our Delaware members had $27 billion in loans. That's probably about 40% of our loan book, and 10 billion in letters of credit. That's 37 billion in credit outstanding right here to Delaware financial institutions. As these numbers show, we are invested in Delaware. And by the way, this is all accomplished with private dollars. There's not one dime of taxpayer money in any of the home loan banks. So back in 2005, the question was, what more can we do to be a catalyst for building thriving communities in our 3 states? We understand that our members benefit from thriving communities. We know that affordable housing projects can be influenced positively or negatively by their location. And we know that our 3 states included a number of struggling communities, and this was well before the financial crisis. So it seemed that a relatively small investment of dollars could leverage a large impact on our members and their communities. And as John described, the results have been positive, encouraging, and gratifying. So the challenge ahead, Dr. Grasso, I'd like to thank you personally for your leadership. University of Delaware, and particularly the Center for Community Research and Service, has been a fantastic partner since Blueprint first kicked off in Delaware with 9 communities back in 2005, and then 2 more in 2010. Dr. Steve Paquet, a huge thank you to you and your staff of CCRS for the work you do for Blueprint. Not just with my staff, but in developing an inspiring curriculum for these Blueprint communities. Governor Markell and Congressman Carney, thank you both for being here to encourage these new teams as they begin their journey. What a wonderful show of support. Finally, to the teams. Blueprint is designed to provide you with tools you'll need so you can help your communities get their second wind. You'll receive guidance on how you can become more effective community leaders, energize and mobilize associates in your community, increase organizational capacity, develop a vision and plan of action to make your community a better place to live and work. Today, you're at the starting gate, and you may be wondering, what does success look like? Can we achieve it? Well, 11 Delaware teams before you wondered the same things, sitting in their seats on banner day, watching and listening, and waiting for their street banners. They shared your excitement and your anxiety, and you will share in their success stories, I'm sure of it. To date, as a direct and indirect result of the Blueprint Initiative, participating Blueprint communities have used nearly $20 million of our community investment products to realize $165 million in total investment in the communities. We commend you on taking up this challenge for your community. From the bank here today and those back in Pittsburgh, you have our admiration, support, and sincere best wishes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Winthrop. Our next speaker is Dr. Domenico Grasso, who was named Provost of the University of Delaware in January 2013. Prior to that, he held senior leadership positions in many universities across the country, and the list of academic and professional accomplishments is really impressive. So prior to joining the University of Delaware, Dr. Grasso also held senior leadership positions in the University of Vermont, Smith College, University of Connecticut. He was a visiting scholar at UC Berkeley. And then there's a long list where he had provided as an academic advisor and on review boards at Dartmouth, Colgate, Tufts, Johns Hopkins, Notre Dame, just to name a few. So please help me welcome Dr. Grasso.
Thank you, John. As John mentioned, I'm the provost at the University of Delaware, and for many of you that may be a foreign term, provost, and you may not know what it means, but the provost is the chief academic officer at the university. And the term actually comes from a medieval term that means keeper of the jail keys. So, so that's a very appropriate term for the chief academic officer of a university. And I often joke that at orientation I unlock the gates, and at graduation I unlock the gates in both directions. John, thank you very much for your introduction. President Watson, thank you for your remarks and for your support of this major initiative. And thank you, Governor Markell and Congressman Carney, for being here and lending your support to this important endeavor. The Blueprint Communities Initiative really is a partnership, and none of us could succeed on our own. It takes all of us to do this important work. And when I'm at the university, I always joke, when you have faculty members at a university, everybody in the room thinks that they're the smartest person in the room. So I keep reminding them that none of us is as smart as all of us, and that's what it takes to make an initiative like this work. UD is very proud of this effort because community service is part of our DNA. We're a land-grant university, and land-grant universities have three important missions. One is research and scholarship, creating new knowledge. The second is educating our students for leadership and for engagement in the world. And the third is actual engagement and service to the community. So as part of this, our students are very involved in community engagement. They spend each year over 250,000 hours of service in service to communities, not just in Delaware, but around the region. That is equivalent to about 10,000 days of service every year. And actually, next week, we have spring break, and 400 of our students are off to do community service projects that include environmental conservation, literacy, housing, social justice, domestic violence, and disabilities. And we're very proud of our students. The Carnegie Foundation recently recognized us as one of the Carnegie engaged universities in the country. Only 10% of universities have that designation. We're very proud of that. And that effort was led by Lynette Overby, who is in the audience here, and I want to give her a round of applause for getting us to that point. Last year, the university undertook a strategic planning effort, and we developed a strategic plan, and the title of the strategic plan is Delaware Will Shine. And I just want to point out that that does in no way mean that Delaware is not already shining. We're shining very brightly, but it comes from our fight song, with a daring spirit bold, Delaware will shine. And a major tenet of that strategic plan is community engagement. And as part of that, just recently we launched a community engagement initiative, a university-wide one, that is being chaired or led by former provost Dan Rich, who's also in the audience. Many of you know Dan, and I want to give him a round of applause, not just for leading this, but for everything he's done to get the university to this point and making it part of our strategic plan in the first place. Dan. The Blueprints community is one of our most successful projects, and that's because it's driven by the people that are directly affected by the work. It's never about coming to a neighborhood and telling someone that you need to do this or you need to do that. It starts with asking questions. It's a collaborative effort, and then actually listening to the answers and in working together in partnership to develop plans and actions that will move the community forward. And of course, we all know that communities are the backbone of our society, and that's what makes the United States and democracy so great. Everyone has a role in this process, and the university is proud to contribute to this work through the Center for Community Research and Service that is led by Steve Piquet, and as we know, this has been a major component of the success of this program here in the state of Delaware. And I want to give Steve a round of applause as well. Since 1972, the CCRS has worked with people and organizations to make Delaware neighborhoods stronger. Through this research and training and technical assistance, They've enhanced the work of governments, nonprofits, philanthropies, and most importantly, the residents. Together we can envision better communities, and together we can create those communities. So thanks to everyone for the important work that you do in this partnership, and thank you most of all to the Blueprint communities for letting us come into your neighborhoods and turn our scholarship and research into real action. We're looking forward to the success of this going forward. Thank you very much.
Dr. Grasso, thank you very much. Also, before I introduce our next speaker, I want to introduce a representative of our City Council here in Wilmington, Darius Brown. Where's Darius? Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Congressman John Carney. Congressman Carney is the sole representative in the U.S. House of Representatives for the state of Delaware. He is a member of the Financial Services Committee, the Subcommittee on Capital Markets, Government-Sponsored Enterprises, and the Subcommittee on Monetary Policy and Trade. One of his aims as a member of Congress is to support the manufacturing sector by creating jobs in America, supporting small businesses, investing in infrastructure, and implementing smart tax policy and regulations. Sounds like someone who supports economic development and community development in your state. John Carney also has a long history of serving this state. Many of you know that he was elected twice as lieutenant governor and has been an advocate for community development throughout his career. He still serves, and I'm not surprised, on many community boards within the state. Congressman, welcome.
Just showing off my new whip, Governor Markell. As part of my job as your lone congressman, like the governor and Senator Carper and Senator Coons, I make a regular practice of visiting employers in our state. And about 2 years ago, I went up to visit an employer here that employs about 500 international firm that employs about 500 people outside the city of Wilmington. Not too far, I won't mention the firm or the place, you'll be able to figure it out. We had a long meeting, and they identified a number of problems that they were having with their facility. So after the meeting, I contacted the folks who owned the building, and we went back for a follow-up meeting. And we were in that meeting for about 5 minutes before they had a whole team of people that they had gathered from the local facility as well as representatives from the company in New York and other places around the country. And the first question out of their mouth before we got to the practical concerns that they had raised to me in the first meeting was, could you explain for us the headlines that we've seen in the Wilmington papers about some of the negative things happening in the city, because we're going to have to explain it to the decision makers who are going to decide whether to expand the facility here in New York City, and they don't know Wilmington at all. And of course, as many of you know, over the last several months, the governor and his people, the county executive, the congressional delegation, and the whole Delaware team has been working hard on the competition for the Dow, DuPont, future companies, and where they would locate those headquarters and other facilities. And what's clear to us in all that competition, in the decision makers' minds who determine the success or not of and the strength of our economy, is the communities in which the people employed by those folks are going to live. And that's why this Blueprint Communities is so, so vitally important. And I want to thank Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, all their leadership, all your staff, many of whom I see mostly in Washington, D.C., for sponsoring the program initially. The 11 communities have done it before, and the 5 that you're going to four that you're going to identify today. And to the University of Delaware and all the partners who make this, make this blueprint communities work. This is really, really important. It's really important at that high level in terms of who's going to decide to come to Delaware and to stay in Delaware, to employ the people in our state. And it's really important, obviously, to the people who live in those communities. I was in a community meeting a couple years ago, and we were talking about some of the crime and drug dealing that was occurring in the neighborhood. And there was a whole cross-section of people there. Towards the end of the meeting, as we were talking about all kinds of different law enforcement strategies and this and that and the other thing, what the city should do and what the state should do, an elderly woman in the back raised her hand. And she said, "I don't know why you're making this so difficult. I sit on my porch every day, and I can tell you what happens in this community." And she went through a whole litany of the activity that she saw on her street corner every day. And the chief of police and the law enforcement people were kind of scratching their head. The point is this, and that is that the community involvement, bringing all these partners together, including the people who live in these towns and in these neighborhoods, to define the future of their communities through the blueprint is so vitally important. And I know that's the kind of work that you do, and that's at the core of the Blueprint Communities Initiative. So I want to thank all the people in the room, particularly the ones who are working so hard as the local team to revitalize the communities that you live in and that you work in. This work is critically important, and we all owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman. I see you use the steps on the way down. And Governor, you don't have to duplicate his efforts. You can use the steps if you want. Our next speaker is Governor Jack Markell. I'm very glad that he could join us today. We all know, and you all know better than I do, his commitment to communities in the state. Through his leadership since he's been governor, he's instituted many programs that have reinvested in the communities that are in this state. And he does that because he knows that when the local economies are strong, investors, homeowners, small businesses pay attention to those communities, and they make investment and they improve the quality of life. So since his administration and through his leadership, the investments have increased. And as I ride through the state of Delaware, which I've done over the past 2 days, you can see the physical change, but you can feel the change as well. So Governor, it's my pleasure to introduce you. And there you did it.
So first, for those of us who saw Congressman Carney literally just a couple months ago when he had his hip surgery, that was impressive. And that was very impressive. And in my case, I am still recovering from my squats that I did the other day with my kettlebell, and I needed to do that for me. So it's great to be here, and certainly the opportunity to follow Congressman Carney, who's done a fantastic job for Delaware, for all Delawareans in Washington, and it's wonderful to have a congressional delegation, including him and Senator Carper and Senator Coons, who always remember every single day when they go to Washington where their loyalty really resides, which is right back here with us. So I want to thank him and them for all their great work. Also, of course, I do want to thank the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh for your ongoing commitment. You know, there are lots of times that organizations will start new initiatives, and then you hear about it the first time, and then you never hear about it from them again. And so we really appreciate your sticking to it and continuing. And I think it's probably because you see the benefit, but it's when you make a commitment, it's important, and it's the same thing that the residents of Delaware expect from us in government. When we make a commitment, they expect us to follow through. So we're grateful to you, and also grateful to the university, and certainly to the provost for being here today, and Steve for your great work over a long period of time. And I think when you find these partnerships where people check their egos at the door and are willing, folks who are willing to roll up their sleeves and get the work done, and it was great this morning when I heard from a number of folks from the Federal Home Loan Bank that the secret sauce to why this is working in Delaware is a partnership with the University of Delaware. We really appreciate all that you're doing. That being said, the real credit absolutely goes to the community members in communities throughout the state. Because, there's no question, I think it's been proven over and over and over again, that top-down community development isn't going to work. It's just not. Because people in Dover, or, people in the governor's office, or in Legislative Hall, or in the mayor's office, or in the city council, we don't have, it's not like, all the good ideas rest in those buildings. Some of you may wonder if any good ideas rest in those buildings. But, the fact is, the best ideas always come from the people who live there. And I thought the congressman's comment about the woman who sits out on her porch every night is spot on. And it's exactly been my experience as I've, walked the streets in Wilmington or many of our other communities. The people who live there know what's going on. And they know what it's going to take for the communities to get better. And it's generally a matter of everybody working together. And we had a great meeting. The congressman and I were together this morning at a meeting hosted by Councilman Darius Brown over at Kingswood about sort of a similar type of project where people from the community are really taking the lead to figure out what is it going to take for our community to be all that it can be. And there's no question, and it is great to have the technical assistance and expertise of folks from the university and to have the ongoing support from the Federal Home Loan Bank. But believe me, those two organizations working, even as great as they are, working together, and even if they work with different levels of government, that's not going to get it done. It's just not. And so what it really takes are folks from the community sort of, working together, figuring out what's needed. And we've already seen a number of these improvements. And we've got quite a group of them, and I don't want to start listing a whole bunch by name, but the one in Riverside, as an example, we've seen some old units sort of taken down, some new ones built up, a new unit for seniors built there as well, and to see some real improvements in that community. We've seen over on Spruce Street, some new facades, community gardens, and the like. We have, in the last 7 years, and thanks largely to the leadership of Secretary Ed Key, the Secretary Department of Agriculture, working with the NAS at DSHA, we've built with the community between 70 and 80 gardens in the city of Wilmington, community gardens. And to see, thank you. And it's one of our activities that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but it's amazing because when you visit these community gardens and when you take the tour, led by the folks who are building them, to hear their pride in the work, all that they've learned about growing, fruits and vegetables, the improvement in health because they're eating, fresh food, what they learn in terms of selling some of the produce. There's a lot of impact there. And so these are, and by the way, they're not very expensive to build. These are the kinds of, really practical solutions. Some of the work that we're talking about is very expensive. Some of it isn't. And some of it's literally like people saying, well, I have a different vision for what this block can be, and we're going to work together to make that vision real. And so, those of you who are here from the communities that have been named previously, and those of you who are here for the new communities, we especially want to thank you because you are making our state better. There is a role for the state government to play, and thanks in large part, I think Director Inaspinati is doing a great job. And whether it's the Strong Neighborhood Housing Fund and some of the work that they've done to facilitate, some demolition, renovation, restoration in some communities. The downtown development districts, which exist right now in Wilmington, Dover, and Seaford. The idea there is we want, across the country, we're seeing many communities where people are moving back into the cities. And it's great. It makes these cities vibrant places. And we want people living, working, and enjoying themselves in our cities. And we thought that maybe a little help a little public sector support could leverage a lot of private sector money. And that's exactly what's happened. We're only in our third year now, and I think about $9.5 million of taxpayer money has actually brought in over $160 million of private money, private investment. And you're seeing it now. You're seeing it on Market Street in Wilmington, 75 new residential units have opened up in the last year. That hasn't happened in a long time. Seeing some really exciting projects in Dover, in Seaford, the first new investment in Seaford in decades, a beautiful new 72 residential units right on the Nanticoke River in Seaford. And we've just announced, I think last week or the week before, that we're going to be opening up the Downtown Development District program to some additional communities over the next several months. And we're optimistic and hopeful about what that can mean for additional communities throughout the state. So there is a role for us to play at the state level. In large part, it's one of support. It's one of making sure that those kinds of resources are there. But especially, really we're really here to celebrate the amazing work that's going on in so many of these communities across the state. To congratulate those of you who are, who will be starting the program new, and we are very hopeful and optimistic about what's going to happen as a result. So, very much appreciate the invitation, the opportunity to be here today. I'm sorry I can't stay. I've got to get down to Dover. Believe me, as Congressman Carney knows, I'd rather be up here than going. Not quite the same way you feel about going to Washington every day. But legislature's in session today, so we have work to do. But to the federal home loan folks from Pittsburgh, to the folks from the university, thank you. Most importantly, thanks to all of you from communities throughout our area who are making our state a better place. Thank you all very much.
Governor, thank you very much. So, communities, now it's time to turn the spotlight on you. So we're going to try to orchestrate this. We're going to bring everybody, every team member up on the stage, group by group. So to help me do that, I'd like to ask Steve Piquet from the University of Delaware, from the Community Center for Research and Service, to join me up here, and Dave Bucas from the Federal Home Loan Bank. So gentlemen, you can take it over from here.
Thank you, John. Well, it is our distinct pleasure to introduce the 4 new Blueprint teams that will commence work actually right after this ceremony. We're going to be breaking out for a small luncheon and then an afternoon of training, of a workshop. So the work begins today. So we're delighted to add these 4 teams, these 4 community teams to the Blueprint program. And I'll be announcing the name of the community as well as the individual members of the planning team. So each community has a planning team, consists of 10 or 11 people that essentially do the heavier lifting with respect to planning the future, creating the vision and planning the future of their neighborhoods. So in alphabetical order, the first that I'd like to ask to come up on stage are the members of Delaware City. The team consists of, so please come on up, use the steps or otherwise. Karen Brady, Anthony Branda, Richard Cathcart, Heather Fox, Constance Green, Stanley Green, Paul Johnson Sr., Lisa Lindsay, Valerie Miller, and Jeffrey Randall. And I'd ask you to to join the members of Delaware City already on the stage, I ask members of the Northeast Wilmington neighborhood to also come up stage. The members of the Northeast Wilmington Planning Committee are Carol Banks, Sandra Ben, Timothy Crawlbay, Bobby Britton, Jan Dennis, Juana Dobson, Terry Hassan, Ivy Ibrahim, Dubert McGriff, Adrian Wallace, and Gina Watson. Gina Watson. Now, the first two communities, the first is in Newcastle County, outside of the city of Wilmington. The second, northeast, of course, is in the city of Wilmington. The third Blueprint team to be joining the program is the Route 9 corridor, which is south of the city of Wilmington in Newcastle County. So I invite the members of that team to come up on the stage. Ashia Kale is the first member. Nino Di Renzio is the second. Dara DuPont, Ronald Handy Sr., Rudolph Marshall, William Mayer, Mohammed Salam, Sandra Smithers, Karen Turner, and last but not least, certainly, is Sheila Young. And the fourth Blueprint team, which is located in the city of Wilmington, and they call themselves Washington Heights, is made up of the following members. Please join us on the stage, if you would. Rashida Ahmed, Charda Candice Brown, Ellen Kassan, Nnamdi Chakwocha, Kimberly Holly Nelson, Cynthia Kelsey, Mike Kelsey, Megan McCarthy, Joel Schiller, and a team member from the city of Wilmington. Is Lenny Sofrin here? I'm not sure if he was able to make it, but we have also a member from the city of Wilmington who will be joining that team. These are the many members of 4 Blueprint teams who will be engaged in a very intensive training program over the next several months. They will be producing a comprehensive community revitalization plan, and then they will be moving towards implementation. During that entire process, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, in partnership with the University of Delaware, will be assisting them in a variety of different ways. Let's have a hand for all the members of the new Blueprint team. And I ask our speakers and dignitaries to join us in the front row to come up on stage, and we'll have a group picture.